As my mother mentioned, I am Jasmine, and I'm here today to share my story. I'm a recent graduate of Barrington High School, class of 2008. I currently attend Washington and Lee University of Virginia on a merit-based grant. And I share my story on behalf of the millions of victims of sexual assault. I share my story because I strongly believe that Jasmine's Law will protect the children in our communities from child sexual abuse. In 2001, I became a victim of child sexual abuse. It was in 2001 that I went on a routine visit to my cousin's house. I refer to my cousins as David, Mary, and John. David was 22 years old. He was a more elusive character. He came and go at his parents' home, so I didn't really know him that well. However, Mary and John had resided at their parents' home for as long as I could remember. Mary was 14 in 2001, and John was just a few months younger than and I was 11 years old in 2001. While I was at Mary and John and David's house, David 22, Mary 14, and John around 11 years old, we went to a neighbor's house down the street where many kids were socializing, seemed to be having fun. So we went down there and began to socialize ourselves. And I began by telling a few jokes, trying to be funny. And the homeowner recognized my ability to tell jokes by handing me a beer. Never in my life had I been handed a beer before by an adult. The year prior I had taken the DEAR program, but I had never been prepared in a situation in which there would be a homeowner with his two young sons by his side, around preschool age, offering a young child a beer amongst their peers. So I took it, and I took a couple sips. And it was after that that he took me inside his home and he offered me vodka. Now, I had never been drinking before this, so I had no idea what vodka was or the effects that it could have on the mind. And although I was hesitant to try something that seemed mysterious, I took it anyway because I thought this must be some sort of a reward for being so funny. So I took the vodka, I took a shot, and it was right after this that somebody pulled up in the driveway. And that's when the homeowner told all of us kids to run out of his house immediately. So we did. And I remember at this point I was rather intoxicated because I tripped over a fence. Now on the way to this person's home, I remember carefully stepping over the fence. So I was visibly drunk and my ability to make judgments was diminished. So we returned to my cousin's house, where David was, the 22-year-old, and he asked us if we wanted to hang out for a little while longer, that being Mary and I, along with John. John decided that he didn't want to hang out, so he went straight to his room. This was rather unusual because John was the closest to me since we were the closest in age, and he normally would always want to hang out. Mary, the older one at 14, agreed that she would also like to hang out with David. So David, Mary, and I went to Mary's room, since she had a permanent residence at the home. And we just started to talk casually, joking about random things. And that's when David decided to offer us more alcohol by saying that he could get some from the basement. And Mary and I said, okay, fine, go get the alcohol. And we waited for him. He brought up some alcohol. And it was very strong, so it was hard for Mary and I to drink. And that's when he suggested that he could get some pop. And it still was very strong, but he kept on insisting and pouring glasses, so we kept drinking. And it was that night that I became a victim of child sexual abuse along with my cousin Mary. Child sexual abuse is a crime that is serious, and it has serious consequences. It turns a child's world upside down to be violated by an adult. Children are very trusting, and they're very genuine, so they're easy to read, and that's what makes them vulnerable. All it takes for a child to become a victim and have their innocence taken away from them is the qualities that they naturally have and an adult who is capable of taking away those qualities and abusing them to violate them and take away their innocence. That's why it's so important that we keep these type of perpetrators in jail for long periods of time. It also explains why perpetrators have so many victims. The average perpetrator of child sexual abuse has over 100 victims. And it's because of how easy it is for them to make a child into a victim. There's another reason why it's important to keep perpetrators of sexual assault against children in jail. And that's because of the healing process that is involved. Any victim has to go through a healing process. A victim of a gunshot wound, there's certain precautions that are taken by the medical staff to ensure that that wound is able to heal. They have to make sure that the gunshot wound is kept clean, that it is covered by a cloth so that it won't get infected. Because if it does get infected, it diminishes the chance of that victim surviving. It makes it nearly impossible for them to recover from their wounds. Now, in the case of a victim of child sexual abuse, it is very important that they have a peaceful state of mind as much as possible so that they can focus on the confusion that they will be dealing with, on the contradiction that they are supposed to obey adults, however that there are adults who are willing to abuse their position of authority, with the confusion that they'll face from being violated by a trusted family member or even a stranger. It's because of the time that they need to recover, because it does take time, it takes years. Now, if a victim's perpetrator is lingering in the streets, it's no different to them than the boogeyman in the closet, except that this boogeyman is real. In the case that a victim is able to recover, and then they run into their perpetrator at the store, it will erase all the healing that had been done. I want to thank you for your time, and I ask that you support Jasmine's Law, because it moves to increase sentencing for child sex offenders. Because currently, the average sentencing is 2.5 years. And we feel that this is too low of a period. We feel it's too low because of the million victims that there are, and because that sex offenders are the most likely offenders to repeat their crime, a heinous crime that has serious consequences. Thank you.